Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome everyone to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to grow as a confident leader and take your business or your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have with me Sandy Stream. Let me tell you about Sandy. So she is an author and activist whose work is built on the belief that everyone deserves and can find peace and warrior-like strength within themselves. After teaching law for 20 years, raising 2 children, and facing a life full of adversities and lessons, she decided to turn her efforts towards facilitating workshops for young and experienced adults to encourage them to live in peace and power. She has written a book, The Courage Circle, which is about power. But she wants to make sure you understand that it is not the kind of power that you see on TV or in politics. That's force, not power. She explains it's a book about finding peace inside. Her hope is that her book will inspire you to get up and do what you need to do in the world. It's about feeling confident, not being arrogant, superior, or trying to prove anything. Just relax confidence by being yourself. Our theme today is, are you ready to stand up for yourself? Please join me in welcoming Sandy Stream. Well, such a very zen. I just, like, as I was reading your information and getting to know you a little bit, I just thought, just like a breath of fresh air. So, thinking about the world as it could be and not as it is for some people right now.
Indeed, indeed.
Mm-hmm. So I always start with an easy question, which is, what part of the country do you call home?
That's easy. What part of my country? I think you're in the States. I'm in Montreal in Canada, and it's a wonderful, beautiful city.
That's one I have not been yet in Canada. It is on my list to go.
Okay, we'll go for coffee then.
Yes, really. So why is it important to stop oh God, let me just say this again. Demonizing. That's it. Demonizing.
Yeah,
there you go. Emotions. I told you, I just had lunch.
No worries.
But why is it? Why should we stop that? I mean, people do tend to think, hide your emotions. Don't let yourself be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, I run courage circles that we do also in Montreal. And really, I think that's the first step to really finding yourself, finding what you should do in your life, feeling confident, and all the other things that will follow. But I think one of the first things is to stop this demonization of emotions. It's been going on for, about 5,000 years or so. So I really think it's time to break that misconception. So our emotions are natural, they're healthy, and they're actually our guidance system. Mm-hmm. So they kind of tell us what we should do. So if we feel sad, instead of putting that aside or just trying to feel better or just ignoring it or saying, oh, I shouldn't feel sad, I have everything, or anything like that, instead, if you allow it and you look at it and you think, there might be something to learn from it, maybe you'll see, maybe I need to find more friends. Maybe I'm a bit lonely, or maybe, so it might tell you something.
Yeah.
Or if you feel angry, instead of saying, oh, I shouldn't get upset and it's whatever and all that, maybe you'll say, oh, maybe there's a reason I'm angry. Maybe, I feel disrespected. Maybe something's not right for me. So I think there's a difference between feeling and, what you do after that, the behavior, that's something
Yeah.
else. But certainly, feeling all our emotions, listening to our own emotions will get us closer to understanding ourselves and become human beings that are sentient. So once we feel our body, we feel our emotion, we feel ourselves, we can start to feel other things like feeling life and feeling trees and feeling our path or feeling a million other things that exist, when we start going into feeling instead of, avoiding and denying and doing all the other tactics not to feel, basically.
I think you made a great point that I want to just kind of go back onto is it is the fact that when you feel those emotions like anger, like frustration, how you react to it, what you demonstrate after that, I think is something that people need to understand. It's not, oh yeah, feel your emotions. If you're angry, be angry, but what do you do with that?
Oh, absolutely. So, if I'm not saying you would, but let's say you said something that I felt very disrespected about, and I probably would start to feel some anger about that, right? Which is natural and healthy, but it certainly doesn't give me a right to control you or to aggress you or to do anything like that. But it would give me an indication of, what should I do now? Like, what am I going to take as steps and take accountability for my life and say, maybe I don't want to talk to Vicki anymore. Or maybe I don't even want to do any more podcasts or whatever else I might do. But it would. I agree with you. It doesn't end up justifying any behavior you want to do just because you feel your anger, but it does give you options. Yeah.
I think, from a customer service standpoint, if I go into a store and I'm disrespected, mistreated, poor customer service, my thing is I'm never going to go back. I may be angry and talk to people about that. And, that's all the fear of customer service people around the world. But say it's in a situation with kids where you're trying to teach your kids how to react to situations. And rather than scolding them or screaming at them or ignoring it, I sometimes think you need to ask, well, why are you feeling this way? Or understand. And in the office too, that's a great situation where somebody does something to you, rather than being angry with them and walking away, find out why they did that. Would you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our courage circles, other than, not demonizing emotions, one of the first baseline things that we do before we get into topics, because we talk about different topics every week, but the baseline is to understand what listening means, just what is listening. And so I like to describe that there's 3 different examples of listening, right? So let's say, we can use a kid as an example, but usually I use an example of something someone might share in the group. So I'll ask someone to share something in the group. Actually, I'll share one that happened recently. There's a woman in the group. I asked for a sample and she said, well, I want to share. I'm here in this group because my husband and my dad always call me a chicken. So now I do a demonstration. What's the 3 types of listening I've experienced in my life? The first would be what we call dismissive or gaslighting, all the other things. So instead of holding up a mirror and reflecting the truth of what she just expressed, right? You kind of put the mirror down, pretend it doesn't exist, and just say like, oh, really? Okay, whatever. What's the temperature outside? Or, whatever. That's
squirrel
really called gaslighting, right? So you don't even exist, basically. It's very, very damaging to human beings. We experience it constantly. And I really encourage people to identify who in their circle does that and to see if they need to, put some distance or do something for themselves, because it is very damaging for us when our reality is constantly challenged like that. So that's the first type. Then the second type, so again, if you imagine human beings as mirrors, you kind of hold it up and the second person might like see a little bit what the person said, like, But then right away they put it down. They want to fix the situation, right? They're like, oh, your husband said that. Okay, so I have a great idea. I have a good therapist, and I know what they can do, and I have a great advice for you. And don't worry, and whatever. And I hope you feel better. And blah, 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 right? But that's not listening either, especially when you give advice that was unsolicited. That tends to serve the advice giver more than the receiver, right? I'm feeling smart. I'm feeling good about it, and whatever. And that's not listening and doesn't allow people to feel empowered to see, okay, what do they want to do about this situation? You're kind of telling them what to do, right?
I think
And
as parents, we do that.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And it also gives them the message you want to fix something, like something's wrong with your feeling. Like
Yes.
say I'm angry, you're like, oh, you shouldn't feel angry. Let me fix it. Like I'm not comfortable that you're actually feeling angry, right? So again, it's this constant message of something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with what you're feeling. Something's wrong with. And these constant messages in our life are really unhealthy. And in my view, the healthiest way is the third type, where you would just literally listen. And that's listen. It. Yeah, just say, okay, so you're angry about something, you want to talk about it. And I'm comfortable with the other person having the feeling of it being angry. If they're throwing something at me, maybe not. But if they're having the feeling, what would be, what's the problem with that? Right? They feel something. There's got to be some good reason for that. So let's hear it.
Yeah. So I like this next one because I think in several of my podcasts it's come up, but why do you say self-love is not selfish?
Yeah, I think many of us have, kind of grown up with the idea that, to be a good person, you have to help other people, right? And so doing things for yourself is like selfish or something like that. I think it's absolutely incorrect. I think it's your responsibility actually to take care of yourself. It's an absolute responsibility. And when people, try to say you're being selfish, probably it's, some attempt to control, which is the other thing. If we could do away with two things over these 5,000 years, it would be the demonization of emotions and everybody trying to control each other. So, people tell each other that in order to, tell them what to do with their lives or tell them how to do their life. And in fact, when we take care of ourselves, we feel better. And then we actually end up being more loving to other people or more unselfish in the end. We are, not burnt out and not other things. I think one of the reasons this came out a lot also, this, always trying to help other people, is because, innately you must feel like you're only good if you do this and this. We measure ourselves by, if I do this, I get points of being good or not good or good. People use the word like good enough. I don't know that I love that language because it still assumes some kind of point system, like good enough. Okay, I got up to 80, so now it's good enough. Actually, I don't see it like that at all. We're actually just innately good, that's it. And so we don't have to do anything actually at all. We don't have to do anything that is not touched. That is still, you're innately good. You can, stay home and be sad for 3 years. You're still good. Doesn't affect, that goodness. So instead of thinking good enough, I like to think goodness. So yes, I'm goodness. So now I don't need to go and like constantly do weird things in the world to try to get this feeling. I already have this feeling. And now what do I want to do? So it's from a different angle, right? I already have this. I'm not doing things to get it. I have it. And now, okay, my cup is full. What do I want to do with myself or in this world? Or, how do I want to act in this world?
So how do we get love from the inside versus the outside? And I think you started to touch on that just now.
In our group, we talk about many, many things we tend to try to get from outside. And, not only is it not very effective, but it's also very disempowering because you're relying on other people to tell you you're good or not good, or you're trying to get approval, or you're trying to get a million things from the outside. So you've kind of given your power to other people on a constant basis. So it's disempowering, but not only that, I think it's not, in my experience, I don't want to speak for other people, right? So it's very, very, very rare to see or experience unconditional love. We use the word, but is it really unconditional, right? Even with our kids, I love you more if you get certain grades, or if you help me, or if you make me look good, or if you, fulfill my needs somehow, or if you're this profession, we give all kinds of messages like that. So in general in life, I think most people have a lot of conditions, related to that. But when it comes to ourselves, we're really the best equipped to know ourselves, to know our whole history, to understand ourselves deeply, to know, okay, I understand why I did that mistake, because this and this happened and I thought this, and we can really understand ourselves like nobody can, in the world, and forgive ourselves for our mistakes, and be kind to ourselves instead of criticize ourselves, and protect ourselves, right? So instead of being the critic of ourselves, we can be protective, protect ourselves more. So I think we have this capacity innately. I mean, we are built from these positive feelings, and we can offer that to ourselves in our hardest moments, and maybe better than anyone else, but doesn't take away from the fact of really it's amazing if you do have an amazing parent or an amazing friend that can offer this. But I think most people don't even experience that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as you were talking, that it's really a paradigm shift, because we have to really unlearn all of this behavior that we've been taught for generations now. So,
Yes.
great grandmother taught grandmother taught grandmother, and now for us to undo all that, unlearn all that, it takes some work.
It takes work, and it takes a ton of courage, right? Because you're going to
Yes.
have to express yourself in ways that family members don't agree with. You're going to have to be able to stand alone sometimes in your own sense of what you think is right for you, when other people don't think it's right for you, how you do your life, or what you're feeling. So it takes a ton of courage to live this way, because we're breaking so many generations of, in my opinion, of unhealthy relating first with ourselves and then with other people.
And I think, for me, not needing other people has been helpful to be confident, because I come from a large family. There's tons of kids, but I found I was happiest whenever I would go off on my own and just appreciate life and nature and things like that. And so as I grew, even married, I do things separate from my husband oftentimes, just not that I don't love him, but it's just I like being alone sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yes.
But there are couples that I know that it's like I couldn't imagine doing that without my husband or my spouse. And I was like, well,
yeah.
to each his own,
Often, and anything that I speak about is I've probably experienced the opposites. I don't pretend to be some expert, maybe just a mistake noticer or something, but we often will merge kind of personalities, or merge, whether it's with family or husbands and wives, or even our kids, where we're like, in psychology, I think they call it enmeshed, or other language, where we're like, we became one. We don't have a strong sense of our individuality. Often because that wasn't allowed as a child. You weren't allowed to be separate and different and set boundaries and know yourself. And so people kind of half, merged with other people. So it takes a lot of guts to start to say, no, I'm actually this way, or I feel this way, or as you're saying, I need time alone, or whatever else, because that's you, right? That's what you feel. You're trusting that. So you kind of became a bit your own mature person, right? Over time. But if as a child we weren't encouraged, it's harder. Yeah.
And so my next question was like, why do you think courage is so critical? I totally agree that it's critical. And I think our definition of courage maybe needs to be adjusted for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I talk about courage, it's not, obviously running in front of the train or doing whatever. That's not the language I'm thinking of. It's really a constant, every moment way of being where you are following yourself instead of following whatever is trying to tell you what to do. So it takes courage basically to be what you feel you should do, right? So I might feel like, okay, I should follow this. That's what I feel I should do, right? And so parents might think differently, husband, who knows who, and you're still following. Or some people think you should wear this makeup or that makeup, or some people think you should study this, So really to set aside all the control, all the criticism, all the unsolicited advice, and then to trust yourself where you don't really know what's going to happen. You're just trusting, like, I think I should do this, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I really, I feel I should do it. That takes, it's a way of being. It's a constant courage, I think. Yeah.
It's for me, courage is understanding that you're probably going to fail or screw up. And as long as there's not death on the other side, I'm okay doing that. But people worry, they plan their lives so much to avoid living, really.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world where there's like a bit of a ranking system, and in the group we talk about something called the calculator. So a calculator, my understanding, calculator is my head, right? Like a real calculator. So our thinking head's a bit like a calculator, and it's always calculating and ranking people, like you're better than this one, that one's better than that, and comparing and doing all this calculating, right? So it's our head. And a lot of it comes from our training, what we've been trained to think and all this other stuff. And then there's a whole other way of being, which does not really buy this topic of ranking, right? Because, what points do I get if I was like, depressed for 2 years and then I managed to take a shower today? Do I get points? Like, who's giving me points for that, right? I mean, how is this point system working anyways? It's so ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
Or that woman who showed up to, there's someone who showed up in the group and says, I have social anxiety, but I wanted to see, if I can handle sitting in a group. Do we give points there? Like, So how does this point system work? So instead of this point system, when you start living in the body, and that's why it does start with feelings actually, but it goes way beyond. You start living in the body and in the heart. And when I say heart, it's not just to be sweetie. You're literally, living in your body instead of living in your head.
And your heart is driving more so.
Yeah, you're driving, and so you don't have this comparison thing happening, and you don't have this fear of not being, doing the right thing, right? Because you feel yourself. You feel like I'm fine. I am good. I'm just I'm navigating my life, and that's it. And so there's a ton of freedom in this way of living, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So running low on time. So I want to talk about you talk about climate change in your book, but you say that we need climate change. So talk to me about what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so I'm not, diminishing the need to focus on climate change, meaning the climate, but I do think, the most important climate change we need is the climate in which we deal with each other and specifically ourselves. So I'm of the belief that, all issues derive from this first topic being, how do you relate to yourself and then to others? And from that, all our behavior comes from that, right? If we are destructive things or disrespectful to things or the environment or anything else, it comes from that. So I think that's the climate change we need, just kind of a re-education of the younger generation is so open. It's really amazing. I hope that they will lead us of, the kind of self-acceptance and self-trust and inner peace that we can seek And once we have inner peace, there will be outer peace. It really cannot, there's no way somebody with, lack of peace inside is going to be peaceful outside. So what happens on the inside always happens on the outside.
Right. Hard to mask.
Yeah.
So you talk about that everyone can create peace in the world.
Yeah.
What type of effort would that take?
In my view, it's not effort that it takes. It's like almost the opposite of effort when you think about creating inner peace. Because, so if I give you an example, okay, I'll give a quick story. I know you're running short on time, but let's say you go to an event and, let's distinguish between outer peace and inner peace, right? So let's say there's an event and something happens and somebody's like rude to you and mean or who knows what, but it's like an important event, and so you don't say anything, and so you go home and you're not in inner peace, right?
Yeah.
If on the other hand you might say something like, really, I'm feeling really bad about this, or I want to leave, I'm not comfortable with how you're talking to me, or whatever. So that might create drama, right, in the whole environment and outside, but inside you're at peace, right?
Because you got it off your chest.
Well, and you didn't allow yourself to stay in a place that's disrespecting you, and maybe you decided to leave because you don't want to tolerate that. So in the moment, it looks like it's not peaceful, but it actually will fall into place because you are now growing and respecting yourself. Other people will see like, okay, maybe this isn't, they might think about it or not. We can't control that. But so eventually that would create, if each person follows their inner peace, things I think would fall in place because you're not walking around in the world, not loving yourself and not caring for yourself, right?
Very good.
Yeah.
It is time now for us to switch over to share my screen.
Okay.
So we can get the contact information. So if you're just listening, I will read the website. And it is https://thecouragecircle.com. Again, that's thecouragecircle.com. And Sandy, if you could just let them know what they would find on your website.
Well, it's all new, this project that I'm doing. So my book information is there, and there's a free chapter, and there's also the link to the Courage Circles that I'm doing, but they're in Montreal. But still, if you come to Montreal, you can definitely attend in person. They're free and they're really nice to do. So that's what you'll find there.
And your book is on Amazon? Or is it, okay. When did it come out?
A month ago.
All right. So very good. So again, if you want to grab that free chapter of her book to read it, I am reading it. It's very good. So you want to go to thecouragecircle.com to be able to get that free chapter, but also to learn more about the Courage Circle. And as she said, visit her in Montreal to be able to join her in her Courage Circle. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. You have such a great insight, and your tone of your voice is just so lovely. I just could talk to you all day long.
Oh.
Thank you very much for being a guest on our show today. And as always, I remind folks that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.